Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined with Robert Archer, President and CEO of Pinnacle Silver and Gold, to reflect on the summer of 2025 and what to expect as we move forward into the fall. Bob, the underground channel sampling at Pinos Cuates has developed some exceptional results this summer with grades up to 85.1 grams per ton gold, 520 grams per ton silver. Can you walk us through these high-grade intercepts? Tell us about the scale and continuity of the mineralization and how this builds investor confidence in the El Potrero project.
Yeah, it tells a little bit about scale. I mean, keeping in mind that we're inside the mine workings here, so we're somewhat limited in terms of the extent of this. So what we're really trying to do is define the size and shape and grade of this particular ore shoot at Pinos Cuates, and being inside it like this and being able to take these channel samples along the walls and across the ceiling, it really gives us a sense of sort of, I guess you could say, small scale continuity from sample to sample, because these samples are taken end to end. So when people look at a table like it's in the news release, and they see individual sample lengths, and they might only be half a meter or 0.6 meters or something like that. That's not the width of the vein. That's just the length of the sample, and the channel samples are end to end. So what they should be looking at is the composite widths and grades, as we combine those results. So what these high grade results have shown us, the most recent ones, as you mentioned, up to 85 grams gold, those came from what we call a sub-level up raise inside the mine workings, so between two of the prominent levels. And they were really a continuation of the high-grade results that we had released earlier in June from the upper level at Pinos Cuates. So, these are giving us a good sense of continuity, at a small scale, sort of, meters, tens of meters kind of scale. And but having grades like that within a zone that can sometimes grade down to just single digit grams per ton, it tells us that there's also a fair bit of grade variability within these zones. And so it'll be important to to run the 3D models once we get all the data to be able to determine what the average grade is likely to be. But certainly the high grades are going to bring up the average, and really bodes well, for developing a mine plan on this particular ore shoot. So we're very, very pleased to see those kinds of grades, and we'll be doing some metallurgy, some preliminary relatively soon, on some of those samples, just to see what kind of recoveries we can get as well.
Now, it was mentioned in the July release that underground drilling is being planned to better define the extent of the mineralized zone. What can investors expect from this drilling program in terms of timing, scope, and how it might expand our understanding of the resource potential at El Potrero?
Well, in terms of timing, we've just been compiling all the information needed to apply to the environmental authorities for approval to start the underground drilling program. So we're just getting ready to submit all of that. That should hopefully just take a few weeks to get a response from them. So potentially by the end of the month, or thereabouts, I hope to hear something back. So there could be some news there, and that being the case, we would then move forward with a little bit of minor underground development, just preparing the drill stations and that sort of thing, making sure they're large enough for the drilling equipment and the people, that kind of thing. So a little bit of preparatory work there, and then we can get on to the drilling itself. So it's hard to put a specific time frame on it just yet until we get those firm plans made up. But let's just say this fall is what we're tentatively planning for right now. And what that will do once we get going on it is allow us to go beyond the walls of the underground workings. Because up until now, all we've been able to do is sample those walls with the channel samples, but we don't know what lies beyond that. It's like being in a hallway or a tunnel. You can can only sample the walls and the ceiling, and so the drilling will allow us to look beyond that to see just how wide is the vein, what is the grade variability across the width of the vein, and that type of thing, and then ultimately what's the size, and so we'll be able to drill sort of fans of holes at something like a 10-meter centers, to gain a much better understanding, much more detailed understanding of what this particular ore shoot looks like. So it'll really be quite significant, because the other zones, they should be similar, but these things are never identical. In these low sulfidation epithermal systems, there can be differences between ore shoots, and gold-silver ratios can change a little bit. The type of mineralization can sometimes change. So, it's important to define each one as best you can, and then go from there.
So you're cashed up. The company successfully closed an oversubscribed private placement in August, raising over $1.6 million. How does this funding position Pinnacle to accelerate development at Potrero? Now, you mentioned some milestones. If there's any other specific milestones that might be worth mentioning.
Yeah, definitely. We were very pleased with the response to the financing. Obviously, just to get that kind of demand first to upsize the financing from the initially announced 1.2 up to 1.6, and then to have it oversubscribed even at that level. So very, very pleased with that, and that puts us in a very good position to commence the underground drilling. With the extra funding, we've been able to pay down all of the existing back taxes owing on the mining concessions, which is part of the option agreement. So everything's completely up to date now, which is great. We can set aside funds to make the next payment on the property, and still have money for the commencement of the underground drilling as well. So it puts us in a good position for all of that. Plus, another milestone will be the LiDAR survey that we plan on flying over El Potrero, and depending on the availability of aircraft, that could be later this month or potentially October. So that should give us some really good information as well on the continuity of the main structure, the main vein system, and also potentially identify some old workings that are harder to see from surface. So we should get lots of good information from that, and looking forward to that as well.
Excellent. Now, you've described the Dos de Mayo vein system as having been traced for 1,600 meters on surface with multiple parallel and splay veins. Given that this property has never been systematically explored with modern methods, what's your vision for unlocking this exploration potential over the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, as you know, Kyle, we've been mapping and sampling the property on surface pretty much from the get-go, from early March, and making good headway on that. We have traced it out for about 1,600 meters, and identified some old workings, some old trenches that we've rehabilitated, and that's been really important in terms of getting a better understanding of the system itself. The LiDAR survey I mentioned, will be very helpful in that regard, in terms of sort of connecting the dots, as you will, on some of these zones and the vein exposures. So that'll be important. For some of these other areas outside of the mine workings, they'll require surface drilling at some point, and that will likely require additional permitting beyond what we're seeking for the underground drilling. So that will take a little bit more time to put that all together. And but keep in mind also that this project is not really not really about developing a large resource. That's not really the goal here. The goal is to advance this quickly to the point where we can get the plant back up and running at somewhere around 100 tons per day, and start production as quickly as we can, because with the higher precious metal prices right now, we feel that we can be generating fairly significant cash flow, and that will reduce the need to be constantly going back to the markets and with diluted financing. So the faster we can get to production, the better. So that's really the main focus for the company. So we'll be much more focused on underground drilling, developing you could say a small scale resource, delineation drilling on these individual ore shoots, as opposed to, large step out drilling, from surface along that 1,600 meters to try and prove up a 5 or 10 year mine life. That's not really the goal right now. I mean, ultimately that will come, we'll get to that stage, but it would be nice to be able to fund those kinds of programs out of cash flow as opposed to out of equity financing.
Yeah, so it's speed over size right now, but the historic resource, and I have it written down here, 45,561 tons at 8 grams per ton gold and 186 grams per ton silver, provides a good baseline, but you're clearly finding much higher grades in your current sampling. How do you see the resource picture evolving as you continue this underground work and moving toward a modern resource estimate?
Well, as I say, the focus right now is to delineate the size and grade of these individual ore shoots. So, the old resource is just that. It's a baseline. It's a reference point. And we don't really have any good records to back that up, other than a few maps and long sections and that type of thing. So it just gave us a little bit of a guideline. But you're right in that the grades we're seeing to date from the underground sampling at Penasquatis are higher than indicated by the old resource numbers. Which is very positive, obviously, but it'll require additional work and the underground drilling that we've been talking about to really get a better handle on that. But for now, we're fairly confident from what we're seeing that we'll be looking at something in that sort of range. From the sampling that we've seen at Penasquatis, we could be looking at somewhere around maybe 12 grams gold equivalent, something along those lines. But the metallurgy will also help in that regard in terms of recoveries and so on. But as I mentioned, it's not really about building a big resource. This is about delineation drilling to put together a mine plan to get this project back up and running as quickly as we can.
Yeah, so not about building a big resource, but should investors think about the potential to discover an additional high-grade zone along this 500-meter strike length?
No, absolutely. The focus initially was on Penasquatis, and that's the results that we've released. We've now finished our at least first pass sampling on the Dos de Mayo vein, or Dos de Mayo workings, sorry, and we're just waiting for assays to come back from that. Once we have those and we've compiled those and interpreted them, then we'll be putting out a press release on the Dos de Mayo, and then we're currently working on the La Dura mine, which is the one to the northwest, Penasquatis being in the middle. And so, with these three dominant underground workings, it's safe to say the old timers were mining something, but we're just trying to determine right now what it was they were mining. And of course, we'll never know what they did mine. What we can sample is on the walls of what's there now, and what's left. But it'll give us a good sense of the size of the ore shoot that's left. And with those three underground workings along that 500-meter strike length, we know now from surface sampling that there is also a zone between Penasquatis and Dos de Mayo where we announced, I don't recall, earlier in the summer now, some grades of in excess of 2,000 grams silver and about 13 grams per ton gold, from a surface trench in between Penasquatis and Dos de Mayo. So there's definitely another ore chute there as well. So in addition to the 3 that we know of, there's at least one more, and that's just on the 500 meters where the old mine workings are. In addition to that, there's the other 1100 that is exposed on surface. Plus, there's another parallel zone that we're working on called El Capulin, and we haven't released any results on that yet because we're still getting results back and putting that all together, interpreting that. So that's a parallel zone that's about 200 meters away from the Dos de Mayo. So there are definitely other zones there, and we're just trying to get a better understanding of it before we announce anything. But there's definitely more to come.
I have a final question for you here. Clearly and obviously, the focus has been on Mexico, but looking at the bigger picture, Pinnacle has quality projects in both Mexico and Ontario's Red Lake District. How do you see the company's strategy evolving as you advance up Potrero, and what should investors expect in terms of value creation catalysts heading into 2026?
Well, with the funding that we've recently completed, that gives us an opportunity to potentially reopen, exploration in the Red Lake area. And one of the things that we're considering right now is the possibility of a LiDAR survey on the Argosy mine. We successfully flew one over the North Birch property a few years ago, and that was instrumental in delineating the major structure there that we subsequently drilled. We're thinking we might do something similar at the Argosy mine. I don't think we'll be doing any drilling there right away, although we're also considering the possibility of maybe doing some flow through later this fall. And if we do that, depending on share price, how much money is raised, and so on, there is a possibility to do some follow-up drilling at either Argosy or North Birch or both, possibly in the winter. But also, going into the spring or summer of next year. So yeah, we're still looking at those projects. Still both great projects in their own right. But in the short term, the focus will remain on El Potrero in Mexico.
Robert, we always appreciate the updates. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. Until next time, thank you.